Hey, what's up guys, it's AndreOth here, bringing you guys another video. And in this video I'm going to give you guys more of an in-depth tutorial on how to do your 808 bass on a UK drill beat. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so we are here in Logic. I have a project open up. This is a beat that I've already done, I've already finished. So I'm just going to take you guys through the process of me doing the 808 bass line for this beat. I've already kind of done a tutorial on this entire beat, but I just wanted to focus in on the 808s because there's a lot of little things that go into the 808s in the UK drill beat that I think is worth having its own video. So we're going to start off with the basics right now. So we're going to start off going into EXS24. So this is what you want to go into when you put your bass into Logic, you know, because you want to use EXS24 because this allows you to do the bass glides and stuff like that. So this is what I normally do. I normally go into Splice and I normally drag in my bass like this. So I go into Edit. So this is where I drag my bass into. As you can see, this is the name of the bass that I used in this beat. So I just go into Splice. I find like an 808 bass, for example. Let's say this one. Alright, so I find a bass. I click open and closing folder. Let's get rid of this, and then I get the bass and then I drag it in. So what you want to do is you want to find the key of the bass. So the key of the bass is G, because it says it here. You always say the key. The key of this bass is C. The key of this bass is G. So what you do is you drag it into G. And then when you drag it into G, I'm not going to drag this one obviously because I already have a bass, but you just drag it there, drag it into the note, and then what you do is you click the key range. So you want the key range to be at least about 5 octaves probably. So for example, this one was G, so it'd be G1 to G5, just so you have a good range of really deep, really low end, and really high end, so you can do those bass glides, right? So that's how you just drag it in. So after that, let's go into these settings here. So in order to get the bass glides right, you want to make sure you have the settings on the screen. So what's really important is legato needs to be checked. So this allows you to get those bass glides right. So legato needs to be checked, and then you need to go. So then you need to go here where it says glide. So normally it will be like down here. 0 ms. What you want to do is drag it up to 60. You can kind of mess around with it a little bit, but you want to keep it really low, and I feel like 60 is the best one because you want your glides to be short. You can drag it up, but the more you drag it up, the longer the glides are going to be. So instead of it going you go ooh, you know what I mean? You don't really want that. So that's really the main things here. And then you can mess around with the drive to, you know, give it a bit more drive. One thing I normally do, I normally turn it up because normally the volume is a bit too low. Yeah, another thing that I do is I mess around with the attack. So let me explain this to you guys a little bit. So with the attack on a drill beat, well, you don't want the 808 to have too much punch, you know, so you want to raise the attack. So let me show you what I mean. So for example, with this bass right here, right, let's turn the attack all the way down. So attack right now is 40, yeah. So let's turn it all the way down, and then we're gonna hear this bass. You see what I mean? It kind of hits, it's like a kick. You know what I mean? It kind of has that punch at the beginning of it, and you don't want that with an 808 bass. With an 808 bass in the drill beat, you don't want it to hit like this. You don't want it to hit like that. So what you want to do is you want to bump up the attack. I had mine at about 40. Yours doesn't have to be at 40. Obviously, it depends on the bass that you have. But the bass that I had, it was best at around 40. I don't think I can get to 40, but it doesn't really matter. 46, 40. Alright, so now it doesn't really hit as much, you know. So when it first hits, it doesn't hit as much. It's a little bit more blunt, you know what I mean? And that's what you want with 808 basses in UK drill beats. You know, the basses in UK drill beats don't really hit like that, and there's an important reason why, and the main reason why is because the kicks are the ones that do all the punching. You know, so I don't need a bass to kind of hit, because the kicks kind of do that for me. You know what I mean? So for example, if I have the kicks here, and with the 808 bass, you normally have the kicks hitting with the bass. So if you play this right here, you know, the kick supplies that punch. You just need the bass to provide that low end. So you don't need the bass to punch. So that's why you turn the attack up, right? Right, so that's the attack. So make sure you turn up the attack. If your bass kind of hits, it's punchy, make sure you turn up the attack. So next thing we're going to talk about is the release. So one thing that you can do with 808 bass, right, is you can have the release up or down. So the best way to do this is turn off one shot, right? If you turn off one shot, what will happen is your bass will kind of end as soon as the note that you drew in ends. So for example, you guys just saw I just turned off one shot, right? So let's listen to the bass now. Let's listen to it. If you listen to this bass right here, you see how it just ended abruptly as soon as the note ended? That's what one shot does. It pretty much turns off the release of the bass, right? Or you can turn one shot off, and you can turn it back on, and then it will kind of slowly fade out. The bass will slowly fade out. So if you turn it back on, you hear the bass will kind of, you know, so it kind of slowly fades out instead of just stopping abruptly. When you're choosing a bass for a UK drill beat, you need to make sure that the bass has release. You know, you need to make sure that it has release, so that way you can give you the option of having one shot on, so you have the release on, or one shot off, so it end abruptly. And both of those options can have both a positive and a negative effect. You know, so when you choose your bass, you need to make sure the bass has a lot of release. You know, for example, if I play this bass right here, right, here's a perfect example. So this is my splice folder. This is just a whole bunch of sounds I have, right? So one of these basses here don't really have much of release. So let me try and find it. So here's the bass, right? So listen to this bass. It just ends too quickly. That's not what you want with a UK drill beat. And then if you listen to this bass, that's what you want. You want a bass that has a long release, so that way you can put it into EXS and you can decide whether you want it to have that long release, or you can do the one shot, turn off one shot and have it end abruptly, right? So the reason why you want to turn off one shot and turn off that, when you turn off one shot, you pretty much get rid of the release, right? The reason why you get rid of the release, or you turn off one shot, right, is to give that kind of effect. So when the bass hits and it ends abruptly, when the bass hits again, it hits harder than, for example, if you have release and you have one shot on, when the bass hits and it kind of slowly fades out and the bass hits again, it doesn't hit as hard. And the reason why it hits harder when there's no release is because there's no bass. You know, so if the bass hits and then it just ends and it hits again, it just hits harder. It's almost like when the beat drops. You know, when you're listening to a song, even like an EDM song, right? When the beat drops, it hits hard because there was no bass at the beginning of the song, and then all the bass kind of came in at one point. So that's why a drop is so hard, because there's no bass at one point, and then next thing you know, there's hella bass. So that's the effect you get when there's no release, when you turn off one shot. For example, if I play this part of the beat right here, I have one shot off, so there's no release, right? So if you listen to this, you know, it just hits harder. You know, for example, if I had one shot on, it wouldn't really hit quite as hard. So let's listen to it with one shot on. You know what I mean? It's okay, but it don't really kind of hit. And it just gives a bit more character to your bass when there's no release, you know what I mean? And that's kind of something that people do a lot in drill beats. They kind of make sure there's no release, and if you want to make sure there's no release, you turn off one shot. But it doesn't always work, because if I had one shot off for this part of the beat, this part of the bass line, I should say, it wouldn't really work as well. So let's listen to this part of the bass line. You know, it doesn't really work as well. So, you know, sometimes you want to keep one shot on, sometimes you want to keep it off. It depends on you. I would recommend turning it off though, because that's just kind of how you kind of make your bass slap a little bit more when it comes to drill beats, right? So this leads us into the next thing, and the next part of this tutorial is the bass glides, sorry. And as you can see here, we have the bass glides, right? In order to get your bass glides, what you want to do is get a bass, just a basic bass line, right? So if we get rid of these bass glides right here, right? 1 second. Get rid of those. The bass line, the original bass line for this beat just sounded like this. Wait, sorry. Freaking one shot is off. Let me turn it back on. Alright, here we go. So the bass line for this beat originally sounded like this. And that just went with the melody. That's just a basic bass line, right? So that's what you want to do. You don't kind of just go into the bass line just coming up with all these bass glides, right? What you want to do is get a basic kind of platform to build your bass glides on. And this is the platform I came with. And then I added all the bass glides. And the bass glides are quite simple. One tip I would give for your bass glides is that they all need to be, they should be 1/16 of a note. That's a good length. So you want to keep it 1/16 of a note just to keep it nice and clean. And that's really how you do the bass glides. The bass glides are really simple. All you got to do, for example, boom, add a bass there. You know what I mean? One good thing to do is you kind of want to have a bass glide right before one of the lower end notes hit. So for example, if I had this here, it sounds kind of weird, but if I have it here, it kind of goes up and it goes right back down to the lower notes. And one good thing you can do with the bass glides is have bass glides that build on top of each other. So here we just had one little bass glide, but this next part I have 3 bass glides building on top of each other. You know, and that's big when it comes to UK drill beats. Instead of just doing one little bass glide, multiple bass glides, and that's something that you normally see that's exclusive to drill beats. You don't really see that with trap beats. Trap beats do have bass glides like this, but they don't really have bass glides like this. You know, and that's important, and it's really easy to do those bass glides that build on top of each other. It's literally, you just put one bass glide, a certain octave, and you put another bass glide here, and you put another bass glide on top of that bass glide, right? And that's literally it. That's all you have to do. And you hear that in a lot of UK drill songs. You know, if you listen to like Dumper, or you know, you listen to London by M24, they have those multiple bass glides, and that's another important thing that you can do with your bass to make it hit harder, right? You know what I mean? And you can even have bass glides that don't just go up but also come down. For example, this one right here, you see it comes down. You know what I mean? So this is the same thing as this one right here, but it just comes down. You just have fun with it, you know, go crazy with the bass glides like that. You know, that's something that's big with UK drill beats, right? And there's another thing, another tip I'd give, right, is to make sure you have some distortion. You know what I mean? A lot of basses in UK drill beats have distortion. This bass that I had on this beat had distortion, but I just turned it off just to show you guys what it sounds like without distortion, right? So this is what it sounds like without distortion. Sounds okay, but distortion just gives it that grittiness. It gives it that grittiness, and it can really bring out those bass glides, because the distortion really kind of just adds the mid to high frequencies to the bass. And obviously when you have the bass glides at higher frequencies, it really brings those out a little bit more. So that's another big tip when it comes to UK drill beats. Just add distortion. You know, sometimes if it's not distorted enough, EQ it so you have more high end. You know what I mean? Just to bring out that kind of crunchiness that you get that distortion kind of brings to your bass, right? A next tip I'll give you guys is to make sure that the kicks are hitting. You don't want soft kicks. For example, the kicks that I use in this beat, they hit. You know, they hit and they're gonna punch through the bass, and that's what you really want. So for example, if I play the kicks for the bass, you know, it sounds good. So you want to make sure your kicks are really hitting. Another tip that I'd give is to listen to your melody. For example, listen to our melody here, right? Wait, sorry, it's the wrong one. Let's listen to it here. So you listen to it, get the channel EQ up, and listen to the look at the different frequencies that's in the melody, right? And what you're looking for is the low end. Now this melody doesn't really have a lot of low end, right? It just had a little bit there, right? But what you want to do, if your bass has low end, if your melody has a lot of low end, you want to EQ it out. EQ it out up to probably about 200 hertz. EQ that out, because you don't need that in a lot of melodies. Your melodies are really going to be a lot of mid and a lot of high end. And if you EQ out a lot of the low end from your melody, your bass will have less frequencies that's going to interfere with it. Less low end frequencies that's going to interfere with it. You want to save your low end frequencies for your kicks and your bass. And your beat is going to sound more clean and less muddy if you get rid of all that low end that you don't really need in your melody, right? But you don't want to take out all of it, because some melodies sound good with a little bit of low end. But if you can, try and take out as much as the low end as you can in your melody, and that will really make your 808s hit a lot harder. And guys, that's pretty much it. You know, that's pretty much it. One other thing that I would recommend is to sidechain your kicks, so that way your kicks really punch through your 808s. But for this beat, I didn't really need to sidechain the kicks, because as you can see, the kicks kind of already sit well with the 808s. But if you feel like you do need, if your kicks kind of interfere with 808s a little bit, I'd recommend sidechaining them. And the easiest way to sidechain is literally just to add, for example, go to your kicks, choose a bus that you want to add the kicks to. Let's say we add it to bus 3. Alright guys, I forgot to mention, when you add it to bus 3, you want to put the volume up to 0, as you can see I'm doing here. Because what happens is the sound will come out of bus 3, and it will also come out of aux 3 as well. So what you want to do now is go to the mixer, go to aux 3, and make sure there's no output, because then there's going to be 2 outputs coming out of bus 3 and aux 3, so it's going to be twice as loud. So go to ST out, as you can see I'm doing here. ST out, make sure there's no output, so there's no sound coming out of aux 3, so that way the volume's going to be fine. It's not going to be coming out 2 outputs. And then you go to compressor on your 808, and then you put it on sidechain, go to sidechain, choose bus 3, as you can see I'm doing here, and then yeah, it should work. And as you can see, the little white line is the kick, and the gray kind of waveform represents the 808s. So the white line, you can see it's going to be punching through the 808s, which is the gray kind of waveform thing. And you want to make sure that the kick's not punching all the way through the 808s to the point where the 808s are kind of dipping, but you want to try and find that balance, and you just mess around with threshold, ratio, and stuff like that to get that good balance. A little basic tutorial on how you sidechain. Sidechaining can get a little bit tedious though, so I'm not going to get too deep into it. So yeah guys, that's pretty much it. That's all the kind of advice that I have for you if you want to make sure that you have the best bass, the best 808s for your UK drill beats. And yeah, we could have kept on going and, you know, got more in depth with the sidechaining and stuff, but the video was getting a little bit too long, and I didn't want this video to be too long. It's already too long enough as it is. And these are all the little things that kind of go into making the bass, to making 808 sound as good as they possibly can. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you did like the video though, please hit the like button down below and subscribe for more, because I have way more videos like this coming out every single week. And if you guys want to purchase any beats from me, you guys can click the link in the description to get 10 free beats. That comes with the waves, MP3s, trackouts, exclusive license and all of that. And if you guys want, you can follow me on Twitter and you can follow me on Instagram for all the latest updates. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.